The concept of making my notes more visual has always appealed to me, but one thing's held me back. In most cases, taking visual notes means not taking textual ones, and if I have to choose one, I'm going to choose to take notes in text. Text is more easily searchable, displayable, not to mention shareable. So I default to text wherever I can, and the few times that I've done something more visual, I've still wanted to write text to go with it anyway. But a few weeks ago, my friend Zsolt Viczián put forward an interesting proposition. ¿Por qué no los dos? What if I could have both? In this video, I'm talking about how to have one note that's both visual and textual by default, using the Obsidian Excalidraw plugin, and how I love this so much that I've actually changed all of my note templates to support this. Excalidraw is actually a separate web app on its own, and it's really good for creating quick and dirty diagrams. But Obsidian Excalidraw is a community plugin created by Zsolt Viczián, who has also created the plugin Excalibrain, and it brings in the functionality of Excalidraw into your Obsidian Vault. So this is a way to create drawings that are still compatible with Excalidraw, but able to be edited within Obsidian. I've talked a little bit about it here, where I go over how to create a visual map of content in Obsidian Excalidraw. So check that out if you want more information on that plugin. But today I'm talking about a very specific idea that happens to work well with Obsidian Excalidraw. And the idea is this: what if you thought of your notes as a physical sheet of paper? On one side, you would have all your actual handwritten or typed up notes, but what if you could also flip it around? And on the back of it or the front of it, depending on how you view it, you could also have like a drawing or a sketch of whatever it is that you're taking a note on. It's the idea of having one note that you can switch between the two modes within. And it's completely different from having two different notes that you somehow have to maybe link together, and having one that's entirely visual and one that's entirely textual, which is actually what I was doing. Here's an interview, a clip from an interview that I did with Zsolt, where he talks about this very concept. He calls it the back of the sheet.
So yeah, well, one of the things that I'm taking away as a next development opportunity, we talked about this with Nicole on this concept of turning the sheet around. So you know you have an Excalidraw drawing, and if you click on the tab, you can switch to Markdown view mode. So that for me is, my metaphor is like having a card, a sheet of paper, and on one hand side you have the drawing, and you turn it around and you have your notes about the topic. But when you turn it around, then you have the Excalidraw content, the text elements, the embedded files, and then the JSON there, which just doesn't look as nice when you publish it, for example, to a website. So I'm going to look into how I can hide that, so when you publish them, it's not there.
If they're markdown, then really it can just be the same note. One note with two different modes, kind of like how there's a reading mode and a source mode in Obsidian, which now is live preview. But there used to be these two modes that you could flip between seamlessly. It's kind of like that, except now, and you know, you don't really need to do that now with live preview anyway. So maybe the two modes are text and visual.
And visual,
Yeah, which is amazing.
I mean, so for me, there are two additional takeaways. So I was chatting to some people at the conference, and the idea was so on the visual, you can create really a small visual. So you should really think about it as a post-it note.
Yeah.
So you have a small visual, and then behind it, you can have a large amount of text and links and ideas. But if you summarize the note on the other side with a small visual, it gives you another level of how you can engage with your concepts. Because when you start to organize your concepts, you're organizing these visual cards, and you're creating connections between those cards. And yes, on the other side you have the detail, but it's sort of a visual summary of your card, which adds another dimension, but also helps you remember the content better.
I recorded that with Zsolt at the PKM Summit recently in Utrecht in the Netherlands, and it was like a 30-minute conversation. It's too long to put up here, but if you are on my Patreon, I am going to put it up there so you can watch the whole thing in its entirety. We talked about PKM Summit and trends that we spotted that were brought up within, the conference itself. It's a really good way to support me and also support Zsolt, honestly, because I'm going to leave a link to his details down below as well. So before we get into how to do it, I'm going to show you what we're aiming for. Here's a note that I actually created for my joint talk with Zsolt during the conference. This is supposed to be like a note for a tabletop role-playing game character, but this could really have been like a person note or anything like that. So it looks just like a normal note. It has some things embedded in it, but it's really mainly text. Now, the interesting thing is this is just one side of it. And if you flip to the other side, I have a hotkey on this. I'll show you how to do that. This is actually the same note. So you'll see it's still the Mystic note. It's still mystic.md, but now it's almost entirely visual with just some words here. The thing is that I don't have to choose which one I'm going to use or which one I'm going to do beforehand. I can just have them both. So I can quickly jump over here to get a more visual understanding of the theme of this character, or I can go back here to look at the front matter or actually look at the description of this character. So I'm going to show you how to use this in 3 different ways. First, I'm going to show you how to create a new hybrid note from scratch by creating a new Excalidraw note template, how to convert an existing note template that you already have that doesn't have anything to do with Excalidraw, and then how to convert existing notes without using a template. To do this, I'm going to start over with a fresh new vault. There's really nothing in it, and I'm going to go and install Excalidraw. So I'm going to install it, enable it, and then before we get into how to create the thing, there are going to be a few settings that I think you should change first. So exit out of that, go over to Excalidraw here. First go into saving here, and then go down and then expand this file name section. And we're going to toggle this setting off here. By default, Excalidraw is going to take new notes and save them in the format .excalidraw.md. Personally, I think that goes against the ethos of having one note, and it can be visual and it can be textual. It doesn't really matter which. So I actually disable this so that everything's just a markdown. What I'm trying to do here is really try to break my mind out of the habit that a note, a .md or markdown note, is always a textual one, because I want to be able to switch and do both and maybe just do one or the other and not really have a stark difference between the two. So I've toggled that one off, and then I'm going to scroll back up to collapse the saving part, and I'm going to expand embedding Excalidraw into your notes and exporting. I'm going to scroll down and then expand auto export settings, and then I'm going to toggle auto export SVG. I'll tell you why this is important in a second, but for now, just toggle it on. I am also going to go to the settings for the templates folder here, and I'm going to put a template folder location, and I'm just going to call it templates. And whatever I put there, I'm also going to put in the Excalidraw settings. So back to the Excalidraw settings, I'm going to go to basic this time. And then there's Excalidraw template file or folder. I mean, you can use this Excalidraw one, but I'm just going to put the templates folder. Again, no difference now between Markdown notes and Excalidraw drawings. So I'm going to exit out of that and exit out of this graph view. I'm going to hit the command pane, Command P or Control P, and then I'm going to type create new drawing. Now there are a few options here. I pretty much always just use create new drawing in the current active window. So this is the new Excalidraw drawing. And one last thing, this is a quality of life thing, strictly not even necessary, but I just really find it useful. I'm going to go into hotkeys, and then here in toggle between Excalidraw and Markdown mode, I'm going to choose a new command, hotkey or shortcut for this. Now it was funny because while I was talking to Zsolt, we just so happened to have chosen the same one, which is Command Option E, but you can make it whatever you'd like. All right, so now we're here and I'm going to hit the command pane, that's Command P or Control P, and then I'm going to create new drawing. Now there are 4 different ways to create one. I pretty much always just use create new drawing in the current active window, so I'm gonna do that. Now, if I hit Command Option E, that's actually toggling to the other side. Now, okay, let's do that without the hotkey. If you didn't do the hotkey, you can always go to the command pane and then type toggle, and it'll just be here, toggle between Excalidraw and Markdown mode. So right now, because we created an Excalidraw drawing, this is in the drawing mode. But if we flip it, that's like turning it around, and now we're looking at the text side of it. So let's go ahead and rename this New Note. Now by default, any new Excalidraw drawing is going to, when you open it up, default to the drawing view. So you would automatically go to this. So if we go to here, then you'll see that it went straight to the drawing. So let's like draw something there. You could leave it at this if you'd like, but personally, I like for it to default in text view and then have the option to turn it around. So if you are like me, then what you need to do is go here and add a property, and it's going to be Excalidraw open MD, and it's going to have to be true. So this is what that looks like in source mode, just so you see what I've typed out. Now what I'd like to do is make this the new template. So I'm going to change out a few things that I don't think I really need, like this warning. I know about Excalidraw view, so I'm going to exit out of that. Now, I'm probably going to have something like title here. If you're using Templator, the community plugin, then this would be a little bit different, but I haven't installed any community plugins here except for Excalidraw, so I'm like going vanilla only. So I would like the title of the note there. And then I'm going to do something where I'm going to embed the title .svg. So remember when I said that in the Excalidraw settings that you should do an auto export to SVG? This is so that we can do just this. We want to be able to embed what's on the Excalidraw drawing portion of the note on the textual side. You can skip this if you don't want to do this, but I personally have found it useful to be able to see both sides of it. So now let's turn this into an actual template. Now, right now, this is in the Excalidraw folder. We said that the templates folder is going to be in here, template. So we're moving that over there. And we just want that to be applied whenever we create a new note. So now let's create a new note. I just hit Command N. Now this is still an untitled note, so I'm going to insert to the template. And that's the new note. All right. So we have a new note here, we've inserted the template, and now this is automatically an Excalidraw drawing as well. What that means is, you can see here it says untitled.svg could not be found. That's because we haven't done anything in the drawing yet. But from here on, all we have to do is toggle to that other side of the sheet, and I hit Command Option E, and here we are. Because we put like this box here, I realized in the template, maybe we didn't really need that, but okay, well now we have a nice box here. This is an untitled note. And then I'm going to hit Control S just to force Excalidraw to save it. Not really necessary, but you know, if you want to switch quickly back and forth, I would do it. And then I'm going to switch back here. And now instead of saying, you know, so-and-so SVG could not be found, now it's actually embedding the SVG here. And it's going to be automatically updated too. So if I go here and I say, I don't actually want this box, I want this diamond, and I'll hit the save one again, Command Control S, flip back, and this was automatically updated because we turned on auto export is true. So that's how to create a brand new hybrid textual visual note. So because I didn't have the community plugin Templator installed, I did have to insert the template manually, but with the Templator plugin, you can actually set it up so that, you know, certain templates are applied when you put it in certain folders, or maybe you just want to have it automatically applied to every note. All of those things are options that you can add on to this, but I just wanted to keep it to Core Plugins and Excalidraw for now. So that's how you would do it if you wanted to create a brand new hybrid note template that is textual and visual. But what if you already had some textual notes and you want to make them visual ones as well? Well, let's pretend that we've got something here, and I'll say textual. And let's say you had the title here and texty text over there. And so when we create a new note, it's untitled 1, insert template. Let's say, oops, if you insert textual, that's normally what you would find. Now, how do we turn this textual one into a visual template? Well, it turns out it's actually not that bad. You see this new note here, we just have to copy these. So I'm going to switch over to the source mode, and I'm going to copy this and put the properties in there. And then I'm also going to copy the rest of this, so the text elements and the drawing part. So I'll move over there to the textual one and copy that over. Now let's do that again, applying the textual template and insert template, and I'll say textual, although now it looks very similar, and I'm going to hit Command Option E, and there you go. This is our Excalidraw drawing too. So Zsolt first pitched this idea of a hybrid visual textual note to me a couple months ago when we were preparing for our joint talk at the PKM Summit conference last month. And I loved the idea, and I immediately wanted to convert all my notes. While I didn't end up doing that, I did decide to go back and convert all my templates. Zsolt kind of convinced me that I shouldn't just mass convert all of my textual notes, and I'm mostly glad that he was able to succeed in that. So let's have a look at some of my personal templates just to show to you what I did manage to do. So here is my daily note. It looks very much the same as the last time I showed it, but it does have the Excalidraw plugin stuff. So it has the OpenMD set to true, and it has this as well. I did put the text elements within the comment just because I didn't want it to show up. And here's one for a default meeting. I used to just have it as text, but look, it's now also an Excalidraw drawing. And it also has the SVG that's going to be embedded here as well. And the last part is, what if you want a hybrid note, but you already have a textual note and you don't really want to change templates, you just want an existing note to be turned into a hybrid note? Well, here's how you do that. These are my highlights for a book that's called Nonviolent Communication. Now, it is not an Excalidraw note because I've just now remembered that I should probably also update my Readwise template so that it does this. So this is a good opportunity to change that. So I go Command P, and then you can search for Convert Markdown Note to Excalidraw Drawing. And you can see I've also hotkeyed this because I do it quite a bit now. And now it's asking me to select which template I use. Now I tend to have two different ones. This template is just for new notes, which is kind of like what I showed you. But this existing note is a little bit different. That's mainly because it no longer has the SVG here. And that's because it doesn't work too well, I've found, with these templater strings. So anyway, if it's a new note, I apply the one template, and if it's an existing note, I apply this one. But it effectively turns it into the same thing. Now it doesn't do the SVG, but I can always add that in afterwards. So again, that would be nonviolent communication, and then I'll do SVG. And then when I flip to the Excalidraw notes here, I can put in a note here, and NVC is a way of communicating with empathy. And then save that, and then flip back, and there you go. So I could have my highlights along with my handwritten or typed out notes. There's so many other options to Excalidraw that it's really impossible to go through all of them. For example, in my personal vault, you might have noticed that my Excalidraw stuff here is faded out, and that's because it is an Excalidraw setting. So if you go to Excalidraw and you go to miscellaneous features, you can toggle on this new feature called Fade Out Excalidraw Markup. You just have to be sure that you are putting the comment here before the text elements line. And this is actually something that came about as a result of me saying to Zsolt, hey, I want to be able to publish these notes, and I don't want people to see all of these text elements and drawings. So it looks a little bit like that, and it just doesn't make any sense. So I asked him for a way to make it look a little bit nicer when I publish it. Having a hybrid textual visual note is the best of both worlds. Now every time I create a new note, it is both textual and visual, and flipping back and forth between them is really easy. And that's opened up opportunities for me. I've realized that I'm much more likely to just draw a quick diagram or include some sort of spatial element on notes or just paste in a screenshot, because that's all just a hotkey away. And it's really encouraged me to create links and visualize my notes in a way that I couldn't when I felt that I had to choose between one or the other. If you'd like to learn more about Excalidraw, then check out this video where I go over the basics of Excalidraw and how to use it to create a visual map of content in Obsidian. Thanks for watching! Kusunum!